Hello everyone, welcome to day 2 of an intuitive painting series where I revisit some of my old sketches from when I was 12 years old. In this first painting in the series, I am revisiting a sketch that I called Primary Colors, and as you can see, I am getting some primary colors on the canvas during this very first video. This is what the painting looked like after I dried it for about 6 hours. The first step was to create a palette of colors. In a previous video, I found the perfect red that would allow me to use red, yellow, and blue, and versions of all three of those, so that I can use the full spectrum of color on this video. So my orange is a 3-to-1 with 3 yellow, 1 red. My green is 2 yellow to 1 blue, and my purple is a 1-to-1 blue and red. I'm starting out this section with just plain black paint. I'm going to be doing some contrast and accents on this section, and I am using a number 8 round tip brush. Because this is an intuitive painting, I am adding quite a bit of water to the acrylic paint to make it a little bit runny. The consistency that I've always kind of been told with other paintings is the tomato soup consistency, and that's a good indicator that you have the right consistency for an intuitive painting. This first layer of paint is just an idea of where this painting could go. In this particular part of the painting, I am highlighting the hard edges that the watermark left when it dried, and it just created a very hard line on the painting. A lot of the other parts of the painting are really flowy, and I just wanted to really highlight that hard line that the water created when it dried. After getting all of the black onto the canvas, I wanted to just let that dry and next mix up my colors. Now I already have the ratios picked out. I put 1 drop of for each ratio, kind of balance that out. To mix, I use the back of the brush. A lot of people will use a palette knife, but I just like the blend that I get when I use the back of a brush. If I use my brush itself, it ends up like getting into the bristles, and then I have to like clean it, and it just takes extra time. Whereas if I just use the back of the brush, it's just quicker and easier to clean. And up front, I'm mixing all of this, and I have this on my palette, and so I can mix a lot more without the mess of the brush and the palette knife. For this part of the painting, I am using a well-used, well-loved flat brush. It's been mashed quite a bit. For this part of the painting, I'm going to be continuing to mash it quite a bit, and so I don't want to use a nicer or newer brush for that. For this part of the painting, I am starting with yellow. I'm adding quite a bit of water to make this paint really fluid. I want the colors to blend together. But I'm starting with yellow because it is the lightest color out of red, yellow, and blue. And so I just want to make sure that that color gets on canvas first and kind of stands out, and then doesn't get overwhelmed by the red and the blue. The way that I approach intuitive painting is by starting with kind of the darkest and the lightest colors that I see. And so within the yellow, there are parts of the watercolor base that were a little bit brighter or darker yellow than other parts. And so then I start with that darker yellow and I move into add a little bit of white and move into a lighter shade of blue. For the rest of the painting, I am going to continue that process where I just kind of go with the darker color, get it onto the canvas in the place where it is the darkest, and then I'll start adding white to that and just keep adding the darker color and then the lighter color and kind of highlight where each of those colors kind of accent. So in a sense, I'm highlighting the contrast of the colors that are barely visible on the watercolor. For this next portion of the video, I am using a 3/8 inch angular brush. So the reason that I chose the blade brush for this was that in the watercolor painting, there were some not really hard lines like I found with where I marked in the black, but it was just more like purple streaks. And so I wanted to highlight those streaks with the brush, and just as a reminder for future paintings that I want to have something with more of a streaky look to it when I do the next painting. One of the things that you'll notice that I do in this painting is I will go back in with a dry brush and blend the colors together so that they kind of flow into each other a little bit more. And that is just because there's so much water in this paint, and when it dries it's going to give a similar effect as the watercolor, and there's a possibility of it creating some hard lines or the paint kind of collecting in different areas. The last step is to just go back in and do some of those final touch-ups with the black paint to harden up those edges and just make them more visible, and maybe even expand them a little to create some kind of visual form. And you can see this is where we ended up on day 2, which is very different from where this sketch started over 30 years ago. And even different from where we started today. If you would like to continue to see where this painting journey leads, please subscribe to the channel. And if you liked this series and how things are progressing, please like the channel. I'll have all of the materials that I used in this video linked below, including my book of sketches that I just published this year. And you can see the original sketches that we will be working on throughout, until I get them done, probably throughout the next year. Have a great rest of your day.